Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Build It Baby. I'm Penelope Bent. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. Around here, we believe that success isn't something you chase, it is something you build. So whether you're building a business, a career, a relationship, a new chapter, or simply trying to become the person you've always known you were capable of becoming, then this podcast is for you. It's for the dreamers who are doers. People who are ready to stop waiting and start building. I'm so excited to welcome you to Season 5. You know, as I was thinking about how I wanted to open this season, I kept coming back to one simple sentence that I had actually recently written down. And the sentence was, the more I am finding the courage to step out, the more I understand what I want to build. And this was a sentence I honestly don't believe I've ever read in a book. I didn't hear it from another speaker, but a sentence I actually wrote the other day while working through my social media struggles. And you know, it's hard to be visible. I don't care what anybody says. So I was working through those struggles for Build It Baby. And I think, at least for me, I think courage is actually what is helping me find the clarity I've been looking for, not the other way around, which actually was a big surprise. So I did have that aha moment. And today I want to share why I believe that may be one of the most important lessons any of us can possibly learn. This is Build It Baby, the show for big ideas, brave pivots, and bold next chapters. So let's do it. Let's build it, baby. So over the last year, I cannot tell you how many of our listeners, as well as many of my success strategy clients, have asked me one significant question. Now, they may ask it in different ways, but I think it all boils down to one basic question. How do I know, or when will I know? So here's a few. I have so many ideas, but I'm afraid to choose the wrong one. How do I know which one is the right one for me? Or this one. How do you know when you found the right path? And then if I ask a question, the answer perhaps most of the time is, I don't know. I think I'm waiting until I feel more certain before I move forward. And I have come to the conclusion that I think millions of people are quietly waiting for certainty. They are all looking for their knowing before they will take any step forward, even a baby step. I really believe, now that I've experienced this myself, that so many people are waiting to feel ready, or waiting for confidence, or waiting for the perfect sign. So I'd like today's episode to be my answer to the how will I know question. And for the most part, I really think we all have it backwards. I think most of us grew up believing life works like this. First, you become confident. Then you take the action step. Or first, you discover your purpose. And then you build your life around it. I've always thought that was kind of a weird thing, finding your purpose. I never could get my head around looking for my purpose. I think my purpose was just to, be me. I never couldn't understand the question, what is your purpose? I think that question is answered once you have developed a period of life, and maybe then you look back and go, okay, well, I guess that was my purpose. I think you build your life around it. I think that before everything becomes clear, you have to make the first move. And I know it sounds very reasonable, except this isn't how life has worked out for me. And I don't think it's how life works out for most people, because if clarity always came first, none of us would ever struggle. But I don't know about you, I do. I struggle all the time when I'm trying to put an idea together, when I'm trying to build something. And I think the main reason that is that clarity isn't found sitting still. I think I've come to this conclusion that it's discovered only while moving, only while taking the action steps toward the idea that you want to create in your reality. And I think for years, many will believe I simply need to, think harder, research more, plan longer, take one more list, make one more list, have one more conversation, take one more class. Then surely everything will become crystal clear. Through my experience, I don't think that's the case, because truly it never does. Have you noticed that? Actually, sometimes the more we think, the foggier everything becomes. It's almost as though it becomes overwhelming. And I can only really speak to my own journey. And with that, let me tell you, there were moments while building Build It Baby that I questioned everything. And I still have moments like that. Would anyone want to listen? Was I saying anything people actually needed? Should I be more polished and professional? More this, more that? Should I sound like every other podcast host? Or should I simply sound like me? And those questions don't disappear overnight. In fact, I still have moments where I wonder, where I'm questioning myself, but then something unexpected happens, and the more episodes we created, the clearer the vision became. The more conversations we had, the more I understood what Build It Baby was really becoming. Not because I sat in a room trying to force clarity, but because I kept showing up. I kept building. And every step revealed the next one. And I also think that one of the most important pieces of building Build It Baby is that I have a tremendous producer. I have wonderful people that I work with. And I think when you have a great collaborator, when you have someone that really wants you to succeed, then you can throw the ideas out in a safe environment and hash them out. And she's one of these no nonsense kind of chicks. So I know that if the idea is too far out there, she will definitely reel me in. And I think that has been how I have learned what I do want to share on Build It Baby. I think that the working with a team, working with people that can really help you, that's part of the becoming. I don't think we necessarily can do it all on our own in our own little heads. And I think it's important to have folks around you in your build, in your private life. If maybe it's relationships you're building, or maybe it's a career that you're wanting to put together. I think that being able to run it past someone, I find that the same things happened in my work as a success strategist. At first, I was trying to define exactly what that meant. What is the service that I want to provide? What programs do I want? Who's my audience? What's the message? I think I've watched so many people where they'll, I guess it's called their avatar. Well, they'll write that down, it's a perfect, it's a female between the ages of 35 and 55, and she's this and she's that, and that's their perfect audience. I really think that's a huge trap, honestly, because you don't know. You don't know until you throw your spaghetti out there what's going to stick on the wall. I think that's how you learn. I definitely did that with my success strategy work. I started talking to people that needed help. They started asking me questions. It helped me define what I wanted to share, how I wanted to help them. It helped me define my own message just by helping others. And then the more you start talking with people, the writing, the recording, the listening, and the learning, little by little, it wasn't that I created clarity. It was that clarity revealed itself through my actions. And this applies even when I look at building RecruiterMANIA. RecruiterMANIA has gone through the same evolution. At one point, I thought recruiting was the destination. But as I worked with founders and hiring managers and professionals in transition, I realized something bigger. I wasn't just helping companies fill positions. I was helping people build teams, create cultures, instill confidence, and yet create momentum. That's what I was good at doing. That's what I am great at doing. So that turned out to be the asset for RecruiterMANIA. It wasn't just about the art of recruiting. So the work became clear because I kept doing the work. Not because I had every answer before I began. So let's take a breath here because I really want this to soak in. The work became clearer because I kept doing the work. Not because I had every answer before I began. And I think that really points to the myth of having to feel ready. And I really wish someone had told me years ago, you may never feel completely ready. And you know what? That's okay. Readiness isn't the finish line you cross before you begin. It's something that grows while you're already in motion. Think about it for a sec. Think about when you learn to ride a bike. No one says, I'll get on the bike once I've mastered balance. You mastered balance because you got on the bike. You might have needed some training wheels for a while, but you got on the bike and you did master balance. I believe business works exactly the same way. Leadership works that way. Relationships work that way. Reinvention works that way. Confidence works that way. And most importantly, life works that way. Courage is not fearlessness. I think that's one of the biggest misunderstandings about courage, is that courageous people aren't afraid. Well, they are. I don't believe that for a second that they aren't. Some of the bravest people I've ever met were scared. They just simply decided their future mattered more than their fear. And remember, fear doesn't mean stop. Actually, sometimes I think fear simply means you're standing at the edge of growth. I've said that before. Fear is a feeling. It is not a forecast. Don't let today's emotions, today's feelings write your tomorrow's story. Every small step is a conversation with your future. I love thinking about courage that way. I don't have to have courage. I just have to have the guts enough to take the first step. Every small action you take is a conversation with the person you're becoming. How do you become if you already are? You can't wake up and always be, the are. You have to go through the process of the becoming. It's the small steps, the emails, the post, the difficult conversations, the application maybe, or the phone call. Every time you choose honesty over hiding, there's a step. Every time you choose progress over perfection, let me tell you, that's a big step. Every time you do that, you're casting a vote for your future self. And you don't become someone different overnight. You become someone different, one courageous choice at a time. And you know, the older I get, the less interested I am in the perfect plan. I am much more interested in the honest movement of it all. Because movement it teaches us things that thinking never can. Life has shown me that the path rarely appears all at once. Instead, it just quietly unfolds. One step, one conversation, one idea, one act of courage at a time. And honestly, looking back, almost every meaningful opportunity in my life began way before I knew exactly where it would lead. And that sure as hell wasn't because I was fearless. It was because I was willing. I was really willing to try. I was willing to throw it out there. And willingness has a funny way of introducing us to possibilities we never could have imagined. So let's go back to the big question. How will I know? The big answer, you won't. At least not on day one. But you do know enough to take the first step. And sometimes that's all life asks of us. The first step, then the next. Not the entire staircase. So this week, I wondered if you'll bear with me here and ask yourself one simple question. What courageous step have I been postponing while waiting for clarity or confidence? Ask yourself the question and then write the answer down. Don't judge it. Don't overthink it. Just identify it. What is the it? What is keeping you from taking that first courageous step? And then I've said this, I think, on the very first podcast we ever put out there. Write the idea down or write the obstacle down. Put it in your pocket. Stick it in your handbag. Chew on it for a couple of days. Take it out. Look at it again. Decide what you feel about it. And then take one small action. One small bit of movement toward that idea or toward that goal. Something that can get around that obstacle that's been sitting there forever, keeping you from taking that one honest step. Because once you move, once you make that first small, subtle move, you'll begin seeing things you simply couldn't see while standing still. So here's the part where I tell you exactly what I know. These are my knowings, the things I no longer question because they've shown themselves to me again and again. Not from a book, but from building, getting knocked down, getting back up, and doing this work in the real world. Okay, so here are my knowings. Number 1. I know that I am stepping out into a universe full of energy, one that thrives on creative motion. Number 2, I know that my dream or idea always becomes clearer the closer I move toward its reality. And number 3, I know that it is my choice to build my life. One scary step at a time. And those are my knowings. Okay, it's time for our listener question. And I have to tell you, I love these questions. So please keep them coming. It's wonderful to hear what you might be curious about. So this is a really interesting one. This is from Melanie in Ashburn, Virginia. How much of your true self do you actually show to the world? You know, this is a hell of a question. I think for the most part, just because of the way I'm wired, I'm really not, well, I'm not good at keeping my mouth shut. I'm not good at hiding how I feel. And I've always really tried to be true to myself. And I've talked about this on other podcasts, and I know that it's probably horrifying to others because I make so many of my decisions based on how I feel. And I'm not talking about, whether I'm feeling a particular way because someone said something on social media that wasn't nice. I'm talking about my intuitive feelings. I'm very in alignment with my gut instinct. I feel like the universe almost talks to me through that channel. So how much of my true self do I actually show to the world? I would say pretty close to probably 95, 96% of it. And then there's this small area that I rarely ever share. And I think that's the penny side of me. There's a great story about the penny versus the Penelope. When I was in the modeling industry, and I owned a modeling agency at the time, and at the same time I also owned a clothing store, and it was called Penelope's on the Avenue. And although family and friends, I always went and was raised with the name Penny. And yet I had a model come to me one day. She was an English gal. She was really a great gal. And she said, I think if you used your name Penelope, that would be a much stronger name in relationship to the company's marketing. And I thought about that for a little bit, and I thought, yeah, she might have something, there might be something there. So I decided to go ahead and use my name professionally as Penelope. And what I found was something that really didn't have a damn thing to do with marketing. What it had to do with the fact that Penelope Bent is just a stronger version. I think when I get into my business mode, I have a different attitude about things. And then when I pull into the driveway, my husband always says, drop Penelope off at the front door. Because the penny side of me is, probably sweeter, I don't know. But it's a much more shy, introverted side of me. And I actually took that same theory when I was working with helping professional female, mature female women become professional freelance models. I said to them, the first thing I would suggest is that you create a professional model name. And the reason for that is that when you're on the runway, and I also asked them to please remove their wedding rings when they were on the runway or in television commercials or whatever, because when you get on the runway, you need to find the strength in that model persona. And then when you're done with your modeling assignment, you can put your wedding ring back on and become, the woman, the everyday woman and mom that you are. So I think 96, 98% of my true self has become and is Penelope Bent. And then I do believe that there's a private little bit of Penny in there that my family probably are the only ones that know anything about. So yeah, that's my honest answer to that one. But for the most part, it's really hard to be someone that you're not. So for better or for worse, What you see is what you get. What you hear is what you get. So thank you so much, Melanie. Thanks for asking the great question. As we begin season 5, I hope you remember this. You don't have to have your entire life figured out. You don't need a perfect business plan. You don't need everyone's approval. You don't need absolute certainty. Sometimes all you need is enough courage to take the next step. Because after everything I've experienced, after every business I've built, every risk I've taken, every lesson I've learned, here's what I know. The courage creates the clarity, not the other way around. And that with that bit of courage, I discovered Build a Baby is about becoming the person capable of building the life you know you're meant to live. Everything else, business, career, relationships, leaderships, confidence, is an expression of just that. So until next time, please remember to protect that curiosity. Keep letting yourself be surprised, because I have a feeling some of your best ideas aren't waiting in a notebook. They're waiting on the other side of your next courageous step. And let me tell you, if I can do it, you can do it. Now go build it, baby. Always best, P. Build It Baby is a Rainy Day Production House original, hosted by Penelope Bent and produced and edited by Morgan Clymer. Music by Yuri Shemshashen and Oleksiy Holobiev. If this episode spoke to you, please follow the show and leave a review. It helps more dreamers like you find us. And remember, you're not just building a bold business or a career, you're building a bold life.